Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and today I'll be talking about the board game Field Commander Napoleon. A game published by the company DBG Games in 2011. This is a solitaire-only war game that recreates the battles of the Napoleonic era in the late 1700s and early 1800s. Players get to pretend that they're Napoleon Bonaparte, moving your forces across Europe. And the gameplay is about 90 minutes per campaign, and there's several campaigns included in the box. This Field Commander Napoleon game is actually part of a larger series of games published by DBG Games called the Field Commander series. The first game, I think, was actually Field Commander Rommel, which recreates the North Africa theater of World War II. And then there was Field Commander Alexander, which recreates the battles of Alexander the Great, however many years ago that was. Then Field Commander Napoleon, and then after that, I think they came out with Fleet Commander Nimitz, which recreates the battles of the Pacific theater of World War II. All of those games are similar in that they are solitaire only, and you're playing against an AI system. And I think maybe with the exception of Rommel, although I'm not sure about Alexander, the game is played in over two different maps. There's a campaign map and then a battlefield map. So the campaign maps for the large-scale troop movement, and then the battle maps for the tactical battles, which I'll show you closer in a minute. DBG Games in general, if you've not heard of them, is a publishing company that pretty much focuses primarily on historical-based war games and almost exclusively solitaire with solitaire rule sets. So if that type of game interests you, definitely check them out. I think, in my opinion, they are kind of considered one of the best in making solitaire war games. GMT Games has some games that have solitaire rules, but not many publishing companies that I know of are publishing exclusively solitaire war games. So, and so the Field Commander series is just some of the solitaire war games that DBG Games has published. And although this game is published in 2011, I do think that you can find it relatively easily at your local game store or online. I don't know if they're still actively printing it or not, but I've definitely seen copies available for sale. It's probably about $70 or $80, I want to estimate, depending on where you go. With that said, I'll first kind of give an overview of the components and how the game works, and then finally I'll follow up with my thoughts on this game and whether I like it or not. So thanks for joining, and let's get to it. So here I have a game of Field Commander Napoleon ready to go. This is specifically the setup for the 1796 scenario for the Italian campaigns map. And in the game, there's actually a total of 7 campaign maps. So this is the Italian campaign map, but additionally there's the Peninsula campaign map. There's also, the Russian campaign map. And each of these maps have their own unique scenario setup rules. And in total, there's 11 campaigns that come with the game. So on this map, there's actually 2 different scenario setups, so you can use this board for 2 different completely different scenarios. Besides the boards, one of the main components of this game are the units themselves. So every force has a combat value in the bottom right, which denotes their strength, and the minimum value or the maximum value you can roll and still achieve a hit with the 10-sided die. So for example, this unit achieves a hit on a 4 or less. And there's 5 different types of forces in total. There's these garrison and fortification units, which are static units that simply stay wherever they are located on the map as kind of a defensive force. And then you have the mobile forces, the cavalry, infantry, and artillery, which you can actually move across the map, or the enemy can move across the map. And in addition to the combat value in the lower right, each chip has an activation value in the upper right. That's a value that you have to roll or less to actually activate the unit once they're in a battle. Otherwise, they will sit and kind of do nothing. And then there's a letter on the left side of the chip which denotes the veteran status of the unit. So I think C is conscript, there's P for poor line, there's L's for line, and then there is V's for veteran. And that letter typically is used to designate hit assignment priority. So if there's multiple units of one side in an area and that side received hits, units of lower veteran status will have to absorb the hits first. Additionally, there's supply tokens, which can be used for a variety of things. For the French player, they're typically used to bring more forces onto the map or heal forces that have been hit and hurt in previous battles. For the enemy, the supply tokens are typically used to modify the results on various charts they have, whether it's their enemy order chart where they're moving units around on this map, or this fog of war chart up here, which is used at the beginning of a battle to see if any additional effects might happen, such as the enemy receiving last minute reinforcements. And then there's these objective tokens, which designate the key areas that the French player is trying to go after. Typically, each scenario might have its own unique set of objectives, but generally speaking, the French player is trying to capture all the areas that have these objective tokens on them. So as you'll see then, besides the campaign map, there is then this tactical battle map. This is where the action will actually happen. So for example, let's say I have these forces in the same area, then a battle is going to occur. All these enemies will move over to the battle map. The French player gets to assign where he wants his forces, he or she wants his forces on the battle map, and then you start doing battle turns. And I won't go into too much detail to save time, but in general, the AI system is pretty clean. Their units either move forward or attack, and the French player can also move forward or attack. And the moving and attack can be modified by these battle plans. So the enemy player has a set of battle plan tokens that they're randomly drawing during each battle turn, and the French player has their own set of battle plans that you can pick and choose yourself for each battle turn. And essentially, they're just more powerful actions. So like I said, the standard action is either just moving or shooting, but these battle plans might allow you to move and attack, or change a formation and attack, or charge with an additional die roll modification. So battle plans are always going to be better than the generic actions, but each side only has so many battle plans they can use in each battle turn. The enemy also then has their turn to move their enemy forces around the campaign map using this chart. So sometimes they might go towards your objective, sometimes they'll stay put or retreat, depending on what you roll. A lot of unknown in what the enemy is going to do based on what they roll on this 10-sided die. But with that said, since the campaign map is relatively small, the enemy is only going to be able to do so much. And after the enemy takes their movement turn, both sides are going to resupply. So depending on how many cities the French player is holding, they get more supply points, and the enemy force gets to add supplies based on how many cities they're currently holding. So it's doubly advantageous for the French player to, of course, start taking over cities as fast as possible, since it increases the amount of supply points they're getting, while also eliminating supply opportunities for the enemy force. So in order for the French to win, they do have to achieve their victory by May of 1797. Otherwise, they've failed to achieve victory in the 1796 scenario at least. And also the other losing condition is if Napoleon ever were to die, which basically happens if he is alone in an area without any allied troops. Each campaign can be linked together if you want. So there's rules that describe how a player can, after finishing one campaign scenario, move on to the next one and link them and achieve a final score. Although you can also play any one of these 11 campaign scenarios that come with the game by themselves, and I still and still feel like you're getting a full game experience. So overall, I do really enjoy this game. I think one of the main reasons I enjoy it is it's very approachable. The rule book is only 22 pages long, which isn't too bad, and it has a very complete example of play in the back of the book. So it's a game that I think at least is relatively easy to get into, especially if you don't have any familiarity with the DBG Field Commander series. In addition to that, I think there's a lot of content here, a lot of replayability. So as I mentioned, there's 11 total campaigns that this game comes with. And like I also said, there's 7 maps. So each map is there's some maps, of course, have multiple scenarios, but for the most part, 7 completely different looking maps for each scenario. And then for each scenario, a completely new group of forces to play with. Like I said, all these counters are organized based on the year that they're used for. So from that standpoint, I think that there is a lot in the box, which is good. The battles that went on the tactical map, I think, have a lot of rich choices to choose from. And a large part of that, I think, does have to do with these battle plans that you have at your disposal. Because a lot of times you do feel kind of like what a real battle maybe would have felt like back then, where you have infantry coming at you, but cavalry also potentially coming at you. So which battle plans should you prioritize over others? Which units should you prioritize in moving forward over others? Or maybe holding units back and waiting a turn and hoping that after waiting, you'll have a more advantageous position to charge on the enemy. But also things could go horribly wrong. You could put your units out too early, leaving them exposed, and the enemy coming in and pushing them back. I really appreciate the route when a unit when the enemy gets routed. You don't just end the battle. You actually play it out till they're able to finally retreat off the board, and that reminds me a lot of the Total War games, where like the PC Total War games, where when the enemy is retreating, it doesn't just completely end the battle. You still have the opportunity to send your forces after and destroy as many routing enemy forces as possible, because the survivors do then come back to the map in Total War, and just like in this game, surviving enemy pieces will withdraw and move to an adjacent region after a battle. So you do kind of want to eliminate them if possible. And I just think that part of the battle, the battle map is fun to play around with. And then Napoleon's presence. I appreciate how he doesn't have a combat value. He doesn't give you just a flat die roll bonus, but by having him, you typically have more battle plans, and so you're able to have many more strategic options at your disposal, and you have access to the insight counters, which also give you the opportunity to make some more strategic decisions in that regard. So I think how not having him in a battle doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose, but by having him in your battle, it definitely gives you some advantages. So I like how they incorporated Napoleon's presence and how that benefits you in the battles. A couple negatives. One is the rulebook. So it is an approachable game. However, the rulebook layout, I think, isn't ideal. Nothing's really bolded. First of all, I think key things should be bolded. There's a lot of key rules in the rulebook that I feel should be bolded. And then there's a lot of times a lot of rules don't have a reference tool anywhere else. For an example, they have various skill levels for the units, as I mentioned earlier, from conscript, poor line, veteran, and elite. And whenever you're shooting into a group of enemy forces, those hits are allocated to the least experienced troop. Well, unless you open up the rulebook and find that page, there's no reference for that on any of the boards or battle map, and I think that could have easily been added, maybe with some mild additional cost in printing. Another example, though, that similar to that is some rules regarding shock. And shock is when you or an enemy forces charges into a area on the battle map that has opposing forces. The opposing force has to take a shock check to see if they will retreat, and if they do retreat, they also have to take a hit. Well, there's several modifiers to the shock check. One is if the opposing force is in a column formation, they automatically have to retreat and take the hit. The other is if they're in their approach region, they automatically lose the shock check. And also if they're on the reserve. I guess that being in the reserve kind of maybe is self-explanatory, because there's nowhere for them to retreat to, but also automatically fail there. But on the battle map, that's not there's no symbology to show that there's those penalties. And also on the this sheet, I feel there was an opportunity to put some sort of additional iconography to exemplify those additional penalties with taking shock checks. Kind of mild things, but I feel definitely those were opportunities that were missed to kind of make the game that much more easier to play. Of course, after you play the game multiple times, you probably will memorize all these rules like the back of your own hand. So, but to me, that's something after one play, it did kind of bug me. And then the component quality. DVG games always have the same component quality. Their chips to me aren't anything special. The boards in this game, it is nice. They actually give you 7 mounted boards to play with. So that is actually kind of nice. They are starting to warp, but I don't know if that's my own fault. However, the reference sheets are just kind of a paper quality, and I wish these maybe could have been mounted. The battle map also isn't mounted, at least in this version of the game. So that it's okay, but I wish that part was mounted as well. So with that said, with any war game, I don't think people really care too much about the component quality, but I think that was worth mentioning. But definitely doesn't negatively impact my appreciation for the game that significantly. So with that said, I think that kind of covers everything that I liked and disliked about the game. But like I said, overall, I do enjoy playing the game. I definitely recommend trying to find this game. If you feel you enjoy solitaire games and are a big fan of Napoleonic warfare, definitely check this game out. So with that said, I appreciate your time and hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks.